No.
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Stay motivated and change your socks.
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. But before we get into the episode or you enjoying the podcast, make sure you go to the website. That's the lostart.podbean.com. Go check us out. See what we're all about. There's a merchandise tab. You can go in there and get you some cool merchandise. You can get you a shirt like that. Maybe you want a sweatshirt or maybe a hat, anything like that. But whatever you get, help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project. They're out there doing some amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, we're back here. I got my guest here. This is Tony. Tony, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, AJ.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on here. I think it'll be a good time, and you know, I'm raring to go. Hopefully, you are too.
I believe so. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, let's go back. Start at the beginning. I want to hear where you grew up, and then kind of what led you into the military.
Grew up in Houston, Texas. Born and raised Texas boy. And typical life, hunting, fishing, all sorts of things like that. And when I got into junior high, I got into athletics, and then I got into athletic training, being a student trainer for the school. And then I went to Houston Sterling, and I was a trainer there, and I played baseball. I caught for 3 years, and I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. But the one thing that my dad didn't want me to do was enlist, because I was at the tail end of Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
So went to college and did what I loved. I was a student trainer for Southwest Texas State. Now Texas
very cool.
State.
Okay.
So I did that. I got certified, licensed, but probably about 5 months before I graduated, I was kind of lost. I had a tough first semester, and I'd graduated 3 months late, but I still felt lost, like I needed to do something. And went and talked to the recruiter, and I tell you, it was unbelievable. I started talking to the recruiter in May. In June, they kind of started working me out a little bit and got everything prepped up. July, went to MIPS and then did the physical, signed the contract in July. I graduated in August, and I reported to OCS in Quantico, Virginia in September.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was on Okinawa the following August.
Wow. So it went pretty quick then.
I could not have asked for a better way to go into the Corps, because I always wanted to go to a land that I couldn't pronounce the language or didn't know what the food was. And it didn't disappoint me. I really enjoyed Okinawa, and
very nice.
That's how been riding the pony ever since.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your experience at OCS. You know, do you feel you were prepared for it? Was it everything that you wished it would have been?
Well, I wouldn't say I was a natural athlete, but I was pretty good. I was pretty strong. And when I got there, it was really funny. some friends said, you don't want to do really good. You want to kind of hold back the first few days when they do the inventory tests and all that.
Right.
And that sounded weird to me. And I couldn't do it because my legs wouldn't let me do that. They were used to run a certain way. So I was physically prepared because from the date of my graduation until I reported was 30 days. So I
Right.
was running at least 3 to 5 miles a day, and I was doing pull-ups every day and sit-ups every day. And I just really had a good time. And then when I reported to OCS, let me tell you one little story about that. So
Yeah, go ahead.
I arrived at Reagan International, and it's amazing. You could tell the guys that were going to go to OCS, and so they herded us up, and then they assigned one of the ECPs, the enlisted candidate, and he was in charge. So they told them to take everybody to the bus and stay by the bus. And he said,
Yeah.
can do. So we went to the bus, stayed by the bus, and the bus left.
Uh-huh.
And then all the permanent personnel came walking out, about 5 staff NCOs. And this one staff NCO went up to Vague. Vague was like 6'3", and chewed him out. And Vague told me to stand by the bus. You didn't tell me to get on the bus. I was following your orders. Oh my God, he was so mad. So they herded us back inside. And what was really funny was they turned into humans for a little bit. They said, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. You caught me. And because he was an ECP, he wasn't going to buck the rules. So anyway, so we got to the base. It was like 3 a.m, and then we never made it to the racks. And that's how it was the rest of the time. And I think it did a really, really good job. I understand what the mission was. The mission was to screen us out. It wasn't to determine if we were lieutenants, but basically, do we have the basic qualifications to be a lieutenant? Because that occurs at TBS, basic school. And then the 6 months at the basic school was really what I was expecting to learn. And that was really a great 6 months. And then went to Mumford Point, down at Lejeune, became motor transport officer. Went home for a couple of weeks, got on the bird, and we flew into Norton. And then from Norton, we flew out to Okinawa.
Okay.
And that was interesting. That was interesting because when we got there, they put us in this BOQ, and I'm just going, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I had roaches. I had water on the deck. I had this light that was really hard to see with. I didn't know what to do. I've been in my uniform, and I try to get as squared away as I can. We got on a bus, and so the funny thing, as we're driving around, this one barracks yelled out newbies and newbies, and there was a sergeant, not sergeant major, a master sergeant. He told the bus driver to stop, but a lot sterner than I just said. And he got out into that barracks, just started screaming at all these guys. Came back on the bus, said, I'm done, let's go. And they dropped us off. And I kept thinking, oh my God, where am I going? Everyone else is getting off, and I'm the last few on the bus. Went to Camp Schwab. So North Island, northern part of the island. And that's where I was for my first year until I rotated back to the US.
Wow. That's awesome. Now, tell me about your experience there in Oki. What types of things were you doing on the regular, and kind of your daily operations?
I was the motor transport officer for the battalion, and we did certain exercises, requirements. They told us about, we were going to be the air contingent battalion, and and there was going to be a BLT at Fuji, and we were the air contingent battalion. So they were the first to go. We were the second to go. And
Okay.
so we were doing workups and all that. And then, of course, the birthday ball comes around. And the DOD teachers were invited to our birthday ball.
Okay.
And the way they do it is you're lined up in a certain order. And when they walk in, the ladies, that person is going to be your date in the order. So as they come in,
Okay.
you know, so I got this. I mean, she was attractive. She was a good looking lady, but obviously she was a cougar. And I just didn't. I wish I would have been more mentally prepared to enjoy the opportunity, but I just didn't quite understand it, and I just bailed out like a bunch of us did, because that's what they said. All we're supposed to do is buy them a drink, sit down at the table, have make conversation. And what's funny is you would see them next morning leaving the rooms of the different lieutenants, and it was really funny. So my roommate and I, we didn't partake in that ritual, but we enjoyed seeing these ladies coming out of the room, and then of course we would harass the guys about so, and there were a couple of younger teachers, but so that was kind of how that was. But then we got ready to go to Fuji, and not sure how old you are. But you may have heard the story. 2-4 got caught in a typhoon at Camp Fuji, and the bladders spilled over and killed 52 Marines and sailors.
Oh wow!
This was in 80.
I haven't heard about that.
So that was in 80, and so we had to launch out people to go and fill in and assist in repairs and all that other stuff, and get the camp ready for us when we showed up.
Right.
So we did the embark. We had a little mini float. We sailed about 3 days to Japan.
Okay.
And I was on the Dubuque, and then I came back on the Mount Vernon back to Okinawa. So it's really cool. We were at Fuji. I was told that I had 50 cal ammunition. And I was excited, and I asked how much, and they told me, and I did the math. I said, okay, I can give everybody about 30 rounds. That's not a lot of rounds, but that's not too bad. So I had this all figured out. So we had a truck company. So everybody between the truck company and my guys got to shoot the 50 cal off the deuce and a half. And I told them, I asked them, how many of you saw Rat Patrol? And everybody saw Rat Patrol, because we were that basic age group for Rat Patrol. And they always hit the target when they were flying in their Jeeps and all that. Well, it was really interesting watching the guys when they were just drifting 5 miles an hour, and their barrels were just doing this, and the rounds were going everywhere. So, but it was a good training opportunity for us, and they had never shot the 50 cal.
Yeah.
So we also taught them how to break the gun down, how to tune the gun, change the barrel, and all that. So we had a good. I consider that to be a very good initial exposure to the Marine Corps, because it was a lot of fun. It really was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, my buddy Paul French, he had a little gig going on, and he got us able to leave the camp a day early. And I was dumb. I didn't realize I shouldn't have done that, but they signed us out. They knew we were going down to Kadena. And so we go in and we walk into the BOQ, and I looked on the door, and I thought it was the funniest thing I read. And it was a picture of the base commander, and there was a letter. He was apologizing for the appalling conditions of the BOQ because of the construction going on.
Oh, okay.
told Paul, man, come read this thing. So he read it, and we both looked at each other going, compared to what we lived in, this is great. And, we had a nice bath, shower. We went
Yeah.
to the club, had a nice dinner, and we flew out the next morning back home. So, I mean, it
Very
was pretty,
nice.
it was.
Yeah.
So, but that was pretty much my first year. It was really a good eye awakener, so to speak.
Yeah. Good
Anyway,
introduction for your what you were doing in the Marine Corps then.
yes. And
Yeah.
I was a motor transport officer for, I think, close to 11 years.
Okay.
Because I guess you want to know what happened when I got to Pendleton, but
Yeah. So you left Okie, went to Pendleton?
yep. So I
Okay.
reported to 7th Motors,
Mm-hmm.
at Camp Pendleton, the 13 area, over there
Right.
by the fire station. And so I was the XO for the transport company,
Oh, okay.
and then they made me they brought me up to the 4 shop, and I became the S4, and I was in charge of the car paint program, the camouflage program. So I had a
Oh, okay.
platoon that did, yeah, I had a platoon that did that while I was doing the maintaining the logistics of the battalion.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 8 wreckers,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the 5 can't remember the nomenclature right now, but I got word that they wanted me up at the group headquarters, so I went up there, and they don't know how or why they did it to me, but I was a special services officer, and I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And I reported to the chief of staff, and the chief kind of said, I think you got a little look on your face, like, what did you do wrong here? I go, well, sir, I'm ordered to do this, so I can't really, he says, well, we need somebody here, and we looked at your record, and we think that you're the guy to do it. I'm going, okay, so this is where my career is going. So, but he was true to his word. He said after a year, I was going to uh, receive a better billet, and so I did this. I did the special services,
Mm-hmm.
and I did do a great job. I had everything inventoried. We had good procedures, and then they gave me what I consider the kiss of death. They made me the staff secretary to the CG.
Woo!
I'm going.
That's a tough duty.
I go. Same chief of staff, Colonel Opahanich, and he goes,
Mm-hmm.
Tony, we'll teach you how to do it. You have an admin chief at your disposal. You've got some good NCOs that are clerk typists. You just have to manage the schedule and make sure everything is going smoothly. And
Yeah.
I did do a good job. I really, really did. I got a good write up from the chief. Even the write up for special services went through the chief of staff because there was a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing they were going to do to me was send me to logistics school. So
Oh, okay.
I had logistics school orders, which were going to be about 7 to 8 weeks,
Uh-huh.
almost in my hand. And then I received the orders to transferring me to base. And I'm just
Huh.
thinking, oh my God, why am I going to base? Well, they made me the XO of the transportation school. And
Oh,
I'm
I see. Okay.
going, okay, this is a good billet. So I was the XO,
Yeah.
taught several classes, and things were going well. And then there were some issues at the school, and I wind up getting transferred to division.
Okay.
And now I have like 9 months left. And part of it, as explained to me, was, okay, you're getting ready to leave. We want to bring somebody in here to replace you, which I thought was kind of weird. but when I got to the truck company at Horno, I understood what was going on. They needed a very, very senior, very knowledgeable motor transport officer to be the XO for the company.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And of course, they tell me, oh, by the way, you're going to have a FMF pack inspection in 7 months.
Oh, geez.
So I'm just going, okay. So anyway, the inspectors came. Something happened. The CO was transferred, and I became the interim CO. And I did something that my first sergeant wasn't happy with, but I wanted all the NCOs to be in the classroom. And I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want the officers. I didn't want the staff NCOs. I just wanted the NCOs.
Right.
And I had this long meeting with the NCOs, and I said, okay, I'm going to give you a brief, and then I'm going to walk out, and 20 minutes later, you're going to give me an answer. And they said, okay. So what I told them was, listen, we've been kind of flailing with the preparation for the inspection. I know that you guys didn't, we were doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing. So everything goes out. The training schedule goes away. All we're doing is focusing on this inspection. And so I want you to tell me how we're going to accomplish it.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So I walked out. First sergeant's asked, still mad with me, and he wants to know what I'm doing. I said, First Sergeant, trust me on this one. My father was a staff sergeant in the Army in the Pacific, and he told some stories about, NCOs and stuff like that. And he goes, okay, sir, but I don't like it. I said, I know, First Sergeant, I apologize, but just trust me, please. So I brought him in, and they said, sir, I think what we need to do is, if we can focus on one or two objectives each day, focus on those objectives, we can knock out and to check the boxes that we prepared for it. So that's what they did. What was your MOS again?
I was in the band, actually.
Okay. So we had something to call an HPLU, I think, high pressure lubrication unit.
Okay.
It's on wheels. It's a big compressor with all these different greases and oil. Well, habitually they don't work. And they're the type piece of gear that really is maintenance intensive. But when they're running, they're great. They really, really are when they're running. So my NCOs in charge of those units, that was all they were doing. It was getting those 2U lubrication units. So they did. They got them all squared away, got them SL3 component complete. Everything's going well. And my maintenance chief, the master guns, said, sir, do you want us to stop maintenance? No, don't stop maintenance. You got to work on those vehicles because the inspectors are going to want to know why they're not working on them. He says, well, sir,
that's true.
So the inspection was like 3 or 4 days away. And they said, sir, we got to take these down to third and have them work on them. But we can't, our appointment date isn't until such and such date. And what do you want us to do? I said, well, I'll tell you what, you take the 3 vehicles, whatever it was, hook them up to the wreckers, have them right there, ready to go. Because when the inspectors come in and they want to know why are these vehicles here, I'm saying they're going today, but you guys came here and we can't take them until the afternoon, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So things are really, really going well. So one of the things I told the NCOs, we are not working Sundays, and Thursday you have to tell me if we have to work a Saturday.
Wow.
And if we work a Saturday, it's going to be one objective, and that objective is going to be squared away. And we're going to have the afternoon off, but we're not going to work Sunday. I don't care
Nice.
about that. Well, the reason why I didn't care about it was because I was on the way out and there wasn't a whole lot they were going to do to me. So, but it was amazing. We were almost on par. The boys did a great job. The Marines did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so we had the meeting, and I explained to them, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to be at the gate. I want everybody standing by. I want the battery doors open. I want the hoods all up.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff. So when the inspectors showed up, I saluted. I yelled and called everybody to attention, which
Mm-hmm.
caught the two inspectors off guard. And so they walked in, and they were very impressed. And the funny thing was, I told the guy, the NCOs in charge of the lube units, I said, I want you to run those things, and I want to have a bucket underneath, put a rag in the bucket, because I want you to show them that they work.
Yeah.
And they both worked, and the inspectors were completely surprised. So um, so they briefed us, and it wasn't it wasn't anything like that, but it wasn't a
Yeah.
fail. It was I had discrepancies, but they really were very impressed because they had already known we were in trouble. So
Yeah.
once, very funny, because they went around, the colonel went around and asked all the commodity managers, and I'm the motor transport commodity manager,
Yeah.
wanted us to explain what was our perspective of the inspection. And I said the inspectors were great. They did the inspector team was great. They gave us a lot of input. They were very complimentary on all that we were doing and stuff like that. But sir, and really in the final analysis, it's not going to make any
Mm-hmm.
difference. And the colonel was interested, but the XO was kind of really mad at me. Oh, I got break. So it's about 3 weeks. No, it's about 2 weeks after I reported aboard,
Uh-huh.
and which means I'm about 7 months out from getting out.
Got it.
And
Okay.
the XO calls me. God, it's unbelievable. The XO calls me, starts screaming at me,
Oh, geez.
and he says, we can relieve you if you um, don't get this place squared away. And I'm just going, in my mind, I'm saying, really? Just relieve me right now. It doesn't matter. I'm getting out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why I got out. I was in a field that was over. There were too
Yeah.
many off company grades. So there was just no way I was going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
It's real hard when that it's a struggle for
Yeah.
now. So the colonel wanted me to explain. I said, well, sir, at any given time, I had three platoons of trucks. At any given time, one of my platoons is on float with a regiment, because
Right.
there's 3 battalions in a regiment.
Mm-hmm.
At any given time, I have another platoon that's doing workups for another regiment. And then I have a third platoon that just came off a float,
Yeah.
reconstituting the gear.
Right.
And I just don't have the time to work on my equipment. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out, to the best of my ability, how am I going to manage my equipment?
Yeah.
And until I can get my trucks a platoon at a time squared away, it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to do.
Yeah.
So that was the colonel was very appreciative of my answer, and he said, the inspectors did talk highly about you, and I'm really sorry you didn't get augmented. And I go, well, sir, I understand. mean, I'm in an over field. He says, yeah, I know that we kill him. And I was working for my old boss. He was the Obahanish, the chief of staff. And I got a job with AFES.
Okay.
And they were doing they were hiring for Burger King managers because they had bought a whole bunch of franchises from Burger King.
Oh, okay.
And so I was interviewed by an Army officer, and it was really funny because he could tell I was all tensed up and stressed. He says, Tony, don't worry about it. You got the job. And that just kind of messed me up. And I go, sir, what do you mean? Well, we can't let you go. I mean, you're just of the quality that we're looking for, and we'll train you to be a good manager, of a fast food. And I go, great. So anyway, I went in, I did that, and then I got assigned to Edwards Air Force Base.
Okay.
So I got married just a little bit before that, got married, and we moved to Lawndale, just outside of Lawndale. There's Palmdale and Lancaster. That's it. Lancaster.
Okay.
So I moved to Lancaster, and I drove to Edwards Air Force Base, every day, worked that gig for about 2 years. And because I had an idea, I was either going to go to Fort Benning, Fort Bragg, or Rheinstein in Germany. My wife didn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And I got out,
Yeah.
And the funny thing before, so we got out and we moved to Temecula. Well, no, I was still working for AFES. Funny thing was, I got a phone call from a gunny that was trying to recruit me to come back in the Marine Corps into the reserves.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very interesting career path that I'm doing. So 5 years active duty, now I'm going to go into the reserves. So the gunny sent the reason I called the gunny was he had sent a card addressed to my wife, and what they did was he highlighted the years of service and the grade, circled it, said, Miss Poletti, this is how much your husband can make one weekend a month. So she asked me, because
that's a really good tactic.
Yeah, it is. We have been receiving a lot of that propaganda, and I wasn't certain if I wanted to go back into the reserves. So she said, call this guy and see if that's true. I mean, if that's all it's going to take, and I'm just going, be careful what you wish for, hon.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I called the gunny, and he said, sir, I got to put you on hold. I'll get that question for you. And I'm going, right, gunny. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
No, he called right back. And he said, not only have I identified a unit, I've called the CO of the unit, and he wants you to be interviewed. So
nice. Okay.
So Kath and myself, we went into Encino, California, and I went to be interviewed, and I didn't have long hair, but I didn't have a Marine haircut, and I wasn't in uniform.
Right.
Because when the gunny at the reserve center coordinated with me, he didn't say anything about, well, you got to wear a uniform. So I showed up in cities, and I had, little hair on my ears and all that. So I met my boss, Major Boddington, and I apologized profusely. I just, sir, I didn't take the initiative to put on a uniform. Oh, don't worry about it. We need you because we've seen your record and all this. And I'm going, you know what? Yeah, my record's really good, but I'm not active duty. So that began my career in the reserves.
Okay.
So That was my first unit, 223 headquarters battalion, headquarters and service, but headquarters and service company, 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marines out of Encino, California.
Okay. And what was your, like, when you went to the reserves, were you still doing the same job?
Yes, I was motor transport, which I thought was funny. And kind of an interesting paradox, because the active duty guys don't like us playing with their toys. They've got to fix them. But I was only with Encino for about 16, 18 months, because when we were leaving AFES, she wanted to go back to, you may know the town, Valley Center, above Escondido, off the 15 between San Diego. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to find a house, get a job, blah blah blah. So, so got a job working in San Marcos, California, and worked for a manufacturing plating company. They electroplated copper on metal, and not a bad gig, but I had an ATD coming up, the 2-week ATD, and went to that, and they kind of didn't like that, and they said that they were eliminating my position, which is funny because you don't eliminate the operations manager of a manufacturing company. And we had just moved into we bought our first home in Temecula. So we were really struggling at that point. And so the reserves kept us going, and finally got a teaching job. Nice. And I did that. Yeah, I substituted for a year because the teacher had a medical condition and didn't come back. So I was hoping I was going to get that job. And of course, no, that's too easy. So they hired somebody else, but they made me what was called an exemplary sub. And that's a fancy word. It means absolutely nothing. But what my job was, I had a full-time job without benefits, but I was guaranteed to be paid every day of the year, because at any given time, you usually have 1.5, maybe 2 teachers out. And if they had a sub that was very strong, they would keep that and give that person the exemplary job. So I had applied for a job in Corona, California, which is up 15 toward Riverside.
Right.
And so I got a phone call from the assistant principal from the school I was going to go to, and she wanted to know if I could come up for an interview. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So the story starts like this. So I answer the phone. I'm the phone watch, basically. Yeah. And the person, the assistant principal, says, I need to speak with Mr. So-and-so. He's the assistant principal of the middle school I was teaching at. And I go, is he available? I said, well, no, ma'am, he's outside right now. But if you stay on this phone, because when she said the school, I knew exactly who it was. Yeah. Even though she didn't know who I was. Right. And so I went out, looked for him, and I said, hey, you got a phone call on it, and you need to take it right now. He goes, well, can't you just take a message? No, you need to take it right now. It's the school that wants to give me an interview. And he goes, maybe I can just, can't you just take a message? Please don't do that to me. And he's smiling. Says, Tony, I have a feeling we're going to lose you, but no, I'd be more than happy. So sure enough, I'm end of the day, I'm driving home,
Yeah.
and between the time I left and got to home, um, they had called my house
Oh, okay.
and talked to my wife, and my wife
Uh-huh.
said, her name was Miss Lynn, the principal. The principal just called and wants to interview you for a position at this school in Corona. I said, great. So I called her right back, and she said, um, we'd like to interview you on
Uh-huh.
such and such a date. And I said, okay, I'll be there. So I went to interview, and it was really funny. I didn't speak to her. I spoke to the assistant principal that called me to get my boss,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
because a fight broke out on the campus.
Oh,
And
okay.
Lynn had to go out there, and I was speaking to the assistant.
Okay.
And we had a great interview. And uh, I just want to say, as Paul Harvey would say, and the rest was history, or something like that.
Yeah.
So now I'm still in the reserves. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And now I have a job. Now I got a full-time job. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
probationary because I had some things I had to do. Uh, and I decide I want to drill someplace else. So I go drill at 4th Tank Battalion
Okay.
in at Miramar.
Yeah.
And picked up because why? They need a motor transport officer.
Yeah.
So now I'm in Tank Battalion, and I'm the motor transport officer there.
Okay.
So did that, and then all of a sudden, Desert Storm pops up,
Mm-hmm.
and we get mobilized, go to 29 Pumps,
Okay.
and really funny. Get called in by the colonel, and he says, I need a favor of you. And I go, okay. So he says, I want to make you the motor transport officer and the tank maintenance officer. And I go, sir, do you really know what you just said? He said, yeah, I did. I'm not a tank officer. He says, well, Tony, just think of the tank as a truck with tracks and a big gun on the front of it. Okay.
Well, technically he's not wrong. I mean,
So that's what happened. And he's not. No, he's not. Exactly. So anyway, our job was to net the battalion, to transition the line companies from the M60 to the M1. And we were able to successfully net all 3 companies, with the last company boarding an aircraft out of Camp Lejeune or Cherry Point,
mm-hmm.
and flying before, and the war hadn't started when they left.
Okay.
But by the time they got situated over there, the war ended.
Oh, wow.
So, and that company was there for 6 months afterwards.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
My company went back to Miramar.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing was, in the reserves, when you get promoted in the morning, everything's great, everybody's happy, and then by the end of the day, you get fired, because I got fired out of my billet because I was one rank above the
right.
level of the officer, and I was getting tired of 4th Tanks. I mean, it's a great battalion. Colonel Pierce, Colonel Thompson, both those were great officers, and I had a great I developed a good reputation, and and Colonel Thompson said, "I'll see you again someday," and I go, "Okay." So I got recommended to join a group called Third CAG, Civil Affairs Group.
Right.
So I got selected to go into what's called psychological warfare section.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of how my whole career has been, doing interesting things that most active duty officers don't get to do,
Right.
because in the reserves we get to do a lot of things that active duty guys just don't want to do. They just don't have the time and the resources. So went to Fort Bragg
Mm-hmm.
and PSYOP school, and then came back.
Now that's a pretty intense school, is it not?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we learned a lot. I do somewhere I have some examples of psychological leaflets that were made during Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really interesting. And there's two modes of disseminating that paperwork. One
Mm-hmm.
is by you're flying along, and these boxes get, because of the air, they get shredded, and everything flies out of the box, and the box goes outside the
Mm.
plane and all that. The other way is it through 105 howitzer rounds and 155 howitzer rounds. There's a specific way the round opens up, and the leaflets just get blown out. Because I was a teacher, I had my summers off, and
Mm-hmm.
I reached the point. Oh, wait a minute, I missed somebody. So I left Fort Tank Battalion, not the CAG. I wanted to be the S4 for 514
Okay.
Artillery Battalion at Chavez Ravine in LA, Dodger,
Mm-hmm.
Dodger Stadium area. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, the building, if you saw the movie, the DI,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever see the movie DI with Jack
Yeah.
Webb?
Yeah.
Remember where he and the captain are marching smartly through a gymnasium toward the mom
Right.
of the recruit
Yeah.
whose husband was killed in action, and Vandegrift liked him,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that the base commander here was his company commander during the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so that building is at Chavez Ravine. It's
Huh.
a it's a it was considered one of the original largest freestanding wooden structures, purely wooden structures,
Wow.
uh, in the world. And the dirigibles had metal brackets and all that, but this was
Right.
all freestanding. So that's where that artillery battalion was located,
Okay.
and we did a lot of good things there. Um, I had a lot of fun, and so they made us that didn't have the MOS guinea pigs for a program called RAAC or ROAC, Reserve Artillery Officer Certification Course.
Oh,
So
okay.
for 2 years, I had to take these courses and learn how to be an artillery officer. The cool thing
Wow.
for me was I probably wasn't ever going to command a battery.
Uh-huh.
But because they made me the headquarters battery CO, I never got to be the S4. But
Oh.
because uh, they made me the battery CO, I still took the course.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
now I was promoted to major when I left
Uh-huh.
4 tanks. And oh, by the way, I've been going to again go back to the fact that I'm a school teacher. I get my
Mm-hmm.
summers off, And when I got mobilized for Desert Storm, I was told that, oh, by the way, you get 30 days military leave with pay when you're mobilized.
Okay.
And the 30 days isn't calendar days. In a regular
Really?
business, it would be a calendar.
Yeah.
In the education business, we only get paid Monday through Friday. So it
Oh,
turned
right.
out to be 6 weeks of pay.
That's not
So
bad.
no, it's not. No, it's not. So another anecdotal story. This one's very quick. Back then, a lot of people were worried about people who were yanked out of their jobs and
Hmm.
making ends meet because they had this mentality that military pay isn't very much.
Right.
So I got a phone call. My wife called me and she said, somebody named Terry called you from the district and needs to talk to you about your pay. And I'm like, hun, you talking about our pay like our military pay? She says, well, yeah, but you got to talk to her. So I called her. I called Terry, and she was explaining that the district's very concerned that you're not making enough money because you're active duty. And I said, okay, so what's the issue? Well, we need to know how much you're making because we're going to make up the difference. I go, okay. So because I knew she wanted to know about my pay, I got my leave and earnings statement.
Uh-huh.
And when I called, I had it in my hand, and she said, we would like to know how much you're making a month.
Right.
I go, gross pay or net pay? She says, well, let's start off with gross pay. So I told her how much I was making gross pay, and then that she kind of hesitated at that point. And I said, well, what's wrong? She says, well, right here, you're making more money than what we paid you. And I'm kind of a wisecracking guy. Couldn't resist the opportunity. I said, Terry, does this mean I got to pay you the difference? And she was not a happy camper with me when I made that. Said, Mr. Poletti, I got to talk to the front office about this because we're concerned, but you're making more money.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, you wanted to know how much money I make. This is how much money I make.
Yeah.
And she said, well, can you explain all these different amounts down here? I said, yeah, I guess this is my base pay. This is my quarters pay,
Hmm.
my dependent pay, all this different pay
Yeah.
goes into the equation. So anyway, that was really one of the
That's
funnier enjoyments I had.
Yeah, that's
So
very interesting. But it was good on them for saying they wanted
yeah,
to
yeah,
make up the difference, you know?
yeah. So there was 4 educators, and I stayed in touch with all of them, and we just shared these stories, and they said, yeah, we got the same phone call from our district.
Oh,
So
wow.
anyway, so at the end of Desert Storm, we get back, and I'm promoted to major.
Hmm.
So once I'm promoted, I started talking to 514, and so I got picked up.
Okay.
So now I go through. I'm not going to talk too much about what I did over there, but I was just a battery CO,
Right.
headquarters battery CO. So I got the cats and dogs and all that.
Hmm.
So now it's coming up on rotation. I'm getting ready to be fired again. Time for me to leave, find another home.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm a lot smarter now and I've learned a lot, about a year out, I started looking for places.
Right.
And Colonel Thompson called me. He called me at night. I was at home back in Temecula,
Uh-huh.
and he called me at home. Said, "Hey, I'm going to be the CO of 4th Tank Battalion." I said, "Sir, that's great. I mean, that's really great, sir." And he said, well, I want you to come join me. I want you to be the 4. So I became the 4, and it really
Nice.
was a great gig. I really enjoyed it, and obviously it's a lot different. It's a major staff officer, and
Yeah.
I'm involved with quite a bit. So this is now 93. I haven't really been telling you my number. So 85 I joined 223.
Right.
Around 87 or 88 I joined 4th Tank Battalions first time.
Right.
Then in 91 I got picked up for major, and I joined 514.
Right.
So now I'm coming up on a rotation to go to another unit. So I start talking to 4th Tanks. So in 90, around 93, I think, or 94, it picked up, and I'm able to become the S4 for 4th Tank Battalion.
Okay.
So Thompson gets relieved. He got promoted, that type of thing.
I want to take a moment to talk about something important: getting the VA disability rating and benefits you've earned. The VA claims process is overwhelming and can feel like a maze. For a lot of us, just getting started is half the battle. That's where Brookside comes in. Brookside Veteran Services. We've got your 6. Brookside has helped tons of veterans, just like you and me, take on the VA claim system with confidence. Whether you're filing for the first time, going through an appeal, or trying to get rating increase, they've got your back. Here's some of what they offer: step-by-step help with your VA disability claim, support with appeals and increases, a personalized approach that respects the unique services and situation, and the best part, no upfront fees. They only get paid when you do. Go see the website, www.helpvetusa.com. Contact Michael Irie, Veteran Services Representative on Facebook, or email michael.helpvetusa@gmail.com or admin.helpvetusa@gmail.com. The bottom line is you served your country. You earned these benefits. Let Brookside help you get what's yours. Brookside Veteran Services. We've got your 6.
So Colonel Thompson got promoted and joined. He became the XO of CAG, and so he calls me and says, "I've got an opening for you." So I jumped on it, and my primary mission, I was the psychological operations officer. So I taught classes and handled that side of CAG. CAG has 2 sides: civil affairs and psychological ops. So
Got it.
they sent me to school, Fort Bragg, and it was really a great school. Got to go to JFK High, or whatever they called it back then, and got certified as a psychological ops guy. So that began my 10 summers of going to Korea. So that's kind of another story in a little while. But so after I was coming up on my up for colonel, and I was really worried because I didn't know if I was going to be able to retire or not. So that's when they were struggling. They needed somebody for a major operation down in St. Lucia, West Indies. But it wasn't a typical operation, but it was more of a training environment because it was perfect. So they would they would send me an officer, basically it would be 1 week because they were finishing up their earlier week in the certification course. So when they came to see me, I would introduce them to what I would call the St. Lucia's equivalent to the U.S. Secretary of State.
Oh, okay.
got to meet the premier. So every time I brought an officer in, I got to introduce them to the premier of St. Lucia, and that was fun. And we kind of went through the whole process and the all the taskers that they had to accomplish. And it
Right.
was really redundant to me because I'm there for 83 days. So that's what, 7 times 7, 49, 7 times 9, 10, 11, 12. It's about 12 weeks. 12. Well, they didn't send it right away, but I did about 10 officers. So now I'm coming toward the end and I fly back to US. And so I got home a couple of days before the drill weekend and went over, and then the colonel meets me at the hatch, and he made this interesting comment about lieutenant colonel, and I couldn't put it together. And so we were talking, and then he goes, "Well, you're out of uniform." And I really didn't understand what he meant when he said I was out of uniform. So basically, bottom line, he said it again. And I go, "Sir, I don't understand what's going on." He says, "I know you don't. You're just a lonely major, and now you're going to go back to the grade of lieutenant, except in this case, he'll be a lieutenant colonel. So we all know that lieutenant colonels do not think well at all." So it was a real funny story, and he caught me off guard, and I was like, "Really? I got promoted?" He goes, "Was there ever a doubt?" Sir, can't tell with headquarters Marine Corps. So he laughed. So he basically said, "Go home, get your wife. We'd like to do the ceremony, um, and then when you get back, you got a lot of work to do because we need a lieutenant colonel in another branch of the CAG." So I go, "Okay." So sure enough, I do that, and I do about another 6 months, and I got a call from a friend who knew somebody that was coming in, and he needed a lieutenant colonel logistics officer. So I became his OPSO for a unit called 4th FSSG Forward West. And it's a lot to say, but there's two of us. There's one on the East Coast and there's one on the West Coast. And what our jobs are, we are the liaison between the 1st FSSG on the West Coast and the 2nd FSSG on the East Coast.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. So, and because I knew this little rule about 30 days military leave with pay, I was able to take advantage of that until they started telling me that, well, we're going to need you in the summer because we want you to work wherever the G3 wants you to work, so you can cover an officer that is inbound but's hasn't come in yet. So we're going to give you like 30, 40 days of active duty time. You'll go home every day, no big deal. So it was interesting. So break. So what's interesting was from when I was a second lieutenant until I became a senior major, I couldn't imagine what was going to transpire in my life, in my career. And then once I made lieutenant colonel, it was a whole different ball game, and it was definitely more serious. It definitely required a lot more reading. And behind me, you kind of see my library. A lot of that I still have.
You got one or two books back there.
So, I just love to read and learn and all that. So I started out as the G4 at 1st FSSG, the interim 4. And I learned a lot because there was this one colonel named Sweeney, and he was actually the G4, and he wanted me to be his OPSO. and he didn't really like reserve officers, not because we were reserve officers, but he didn't like reservists. I mean, so every time so I would ask him, sir, give me a project so I can work on, and I'll take it off your plate. And, so he would do that. And then what was interesting was I was getting it done a little faster than he thought. And he didn't have too many holes to punch into it because I had learned as a senior major some things that I kept making mistakes about. So I decided I wasn't going to do it as lieutenant colonel. So he would brief me on what he wanted, and then I would go and get it done.
Right.
So he all of a sudden becomes the G3. He's selected to be the G3. So now the G4 is vacant. So he said he recommended I be the G4. And that was a new pucker factor for me. That like biting into a sour apple. So and he would call me in and he would advise me. He wanted me to be successful. And so everything went well that one summer. So that was the first summer I was lieutenant colonel. So break. A gentleman who was in the CAG, lieutenant colonel, guy named Estrada, he was an interesting snake eater. He was a recon guy, 0311. I mean 0302, and he was really serious about infantry. And
right.
So he called me up, and we became good friends. But he called me and he said, "Hey, listen, how would you like to be a blue and gold officer?" And I go, "What the heck is a blue and gold officer?" And he goes, "Well, it's a person that's an admissions officer for the Naval Academy." And I go, "I didn't go to the academy." He says, "Neither did I. I didn't go either, and they wanted me." And I go, "Well, why do they want us?" "Because we're Marines. They don't have a lot of Marine officers that are blue and gold officers per se." Right. So I looked into it and I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I became a blue and gold officer. So now I've got this secondary career, a tertiary career, being a blue and gold officer. I did it for 20 years.
Okay.
And so I got my reserve career, which is my secondary career, and then I got my teaching career.
Okay.
So I'm having to balance that, plus my kids, plus my family, plus my wife.
Yeah.
So I became a blue and gold officer. And it was really rewarding because I understood what Al was talking about. And that is they really like Marine officers because we talk a language that a lot of the kids want to hear because they don't want to, they go to the Naval Academy. They don't want to be a naval officer. They want to be a Marine because you can do that. Right. Well, you can also be a Marine at the Merchant Marine Academy. Any branch of the service. I mean, if a person goes to the Merchant Marine Academy, they get to choose their branch. They get that luxury. So it's kind of interesting. It really is. So I worked for several congressmen. Never got to talk to the senators, Feinstein and whoever the other one was at the time. I can't think of her name right now. But anyway, so I did that job, and it was very rewarding. But you traveled a lot, and you visited a lot of kids. And most of the kids we saw were middle class, upper middle class, affluent, because they had great grades and all that. And I really loved to meet the kids that didn't have that way. So I'll tell you two stories. One was a gentleman, and he wanted to be a Marine, and he fit a certain mold that I knew he would get an appointment. It wouldn't be a direct appointment. He would have to go through something called NAPS, which is up in Connecticut. Newport News, no, Rhode Island. Newport News, Rhode Island.
Okay.
So So I said, hey, I got to visit your parents. I got, let me go to your house. And he didn't
Yeah.
want me to go. And I go, okay, why don't we meet at a restaurant? No, my mom and dad don't want to do that. I go, well, what do they want me to do? They want me to come home, bring you home. I said, well, why don't you bring me home? He said, sir, I don't live in a really nice house. And I go, let me see. Do you got cockroaches and you got wallpaper that's falling off the ceiling? No, not that like that. I said, well, that's the house I grew up in Houston. And then the
Yeah.
kid goes, okay. So I went. Sure enough, it wasn't a pretty house. It wasn't, very sparse. Didn't have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But mom and dad were there, and um, and we had a great interview. So I did get that kid in. He went to NAPS, and then the next year he went to Naval Academy.
Very cool.
Lost track of him. He did graduate, and he was a Marine officer, and I lost track of him. Never heard from him again. So there's a second one. Actually,
Okay.
no. I'll tell you the third one when we get to Iraq. So the second one was similar situation.
Uh-huh.
Dad left the house. Mom had some medical issues, and the candidate was working her buns off.
Mm-hmm.
She played softball. She played a lot of sports. She had a job. She maintained good grades. She wasn't going to get a direct appointment. She was going to go through NAPS. Got her through.
Okay.
So I was, because this is I got promoted in 1998, Desert
Mm-hmm.
Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom are going to be popping up soon.
Right.
So I had a reason to go. Oh, there's three kids. I had a reason to go to Washington, and I decided to go up to um, where Naps was getting ready to board a bus because they were going to go to a college to play a soccer game,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was fine. She was really happy to see me, and I was glad to see her, and she said she was doing well, and she says, I know I'm going to make it, and I really appreciate everything you've done. I said, okay, I'm glad. Keep in touch with me. I really want to know what's going on with you in your career. So she did. So in 2000, I had a kid at my high school that I was teaching at,
Mm-hmm.
and he was smart as a whip, just unbelievably smart. And he virtually um, didn't take his freshman year at the academy. He was virtually a sophomore when he got to the academy. All
Wow.
the AP classes that he took got him to become a sophomore. So his senior year, he was in graduate school his senior year. So he was going down to another university down the road from the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and he was working on a master's degree.
No kidding.
So
That is impressive.
it is, and they do have kids like that, by the way. So
Yeah.
what was really cool about this guy was he had a pick of a lot of different assignments,
Mm-hmm.
and what was really interesting was he picked a minesweeper, not a fancy romantic ship like a cruiser or a
Yeah.
destroyer, but a minesweeper. And we talked, and it's like, I asked him, I said, why on earth did you choose that a minesweeper? He said, sir,
Yeah.
it was because it's got, I think it had like 70 enlisted personnel and about 5 officers. And he said, I think that's where I'm going to learn leadership. And
Ooh.
I'm going to be out there, and I won't be able to hide behind bulkheads and all this stuff. So I thought that was really illuminating when he graduated and did that. So I'll break from this story and come back to it a little bit later.
Okay.
So, well, actually, I kind of got it backwards, but I'll correct that later. So, anyway, I'm with FSSG now, and the G3, Colonel Sweeney, the chief of staff now,
Oh wow.
and the general, they want to send 5 officers to the Navy, the naval. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Naval. It's in Washington, the Navy Yard.
The Navy Yard.
And
Yeah.
they have the historic library there. So what we were supposed to do was go there and research as much as we could research Desert Storm. So I had my 2nd battalion commander. He was the battalion commander for 7th Motors at Camp Pendleton back in the early 80s. He lived in Roanoke, Virginia, and I called him up, and he was really upset when he told me they couldn't meet, but he would be happy to talk over the phone, and he would tell us as much as he could tell us. So for about 2 hours, we talked to him, and we wrote a lot of notes down, and the guy's name was John A. Woodhead III.
Okay.
And just a great officer, and I wish he would have made general. But he was the chief of staff to General Livingston, who commanded 2nd FSSG during Desert Storm.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So we got that information and went back, and 9/11 takes place. Okay. And so I get yanked out of my classroom. And so what happened was I had to leave the CAG because it was that time to leave the CAG, and that's why I was with the so that's where the FSSG came in.
I got you. Okay. That makes sense.
And so I was at my end of my tour with the 4th FSSG Forward West, and I became a member of an IMADET in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
At Camp Smith, and they interviewed me. This was August, 2001, August.
Right.
So they interviewed me, and they said, "Great, we could use you. We have a place for you already. You're going to be I'm going to be the Korean expert because of all the summers I was there before 9/11." So they said that we'd like to see you. We're going to schedule you to come out for 2 weeks. And so they were going to be working on that. And a week later, or 2 weeks later, 9/11 occurs.
Right.
So I'm in my classroom, and I am very ritualistic. I do everything pretty much the same way.
Right.
Turn that TV on, turn my coffee on, turn my computer on, got everything squared away that I needed. And then I go, that's interesting. One of those buildings is on fire. Because I'm watching Fox News.
Right.
and then they start explaining what's going on. I can see the little banner at the bottom, and that's really weird. And then all of a sudden, as I'm watching this, school hasn't started yet, by the way.
Okay.
We're still, it's the classes haven't rung yet. So now I see the something slam into the other tower.
Uh-huh.
I go, that's not normal. So then I started putting it together. Kids were coming into the classroom. That was a waste of time for everybody, but we couldn't send them home. Um, and that afternoon, I got a phone call from my boss,
Yeah.
a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Bevan.
And that
And
was
he
the
says,
unit in
hey,
Hawaii?
that's the unit in Hawaii. So now they called me up and said, hey, we need to bring you on active duty immediately. And I go, what's immediately? Well, about 3 days. It'll take about 3 days to get orders. I go, I need more than 3 days. Guys, I got to set up my classes for my sub to come in to take over my classes. And I just can't leave my room in 3 days. I know that doesn't sound right, but and he go, you know what? You're right. Don't worry about it. We'll call you in a little while. Boom. Going, that may not have been the right thing to say, but that was the right thing for me to do because I called my principal and said, I got a problem. I'm going to be pulled out of my classroom.
Yeah.
So sure enough, they called me the next day and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you a packet. We're going to send you uh, your ticket information, and we're going to send you to Fort Lee, Virginia for 4 weeks. Okay. And sure enough, they overnight it. Now, if you don't know this about Hawaii, nothing is overnight from Hawaii. It's overnight to California, but it's not really overnight as you would consider overnight because it didn't come to me for 2 days after it hit California.
Oh, wow.
So sure enough, I got packed and the school, and I was like really excited. I'm going to go to Fort Lee, Virginia. It's a quartermaster school. I'm going to be probably put into some sort of senior officer course, blah, 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 and all that. No, it wasn't. It was mortuary affairs.
Oh, yeah.
So think back to when I told you that I got yanked out of seventh motors when I was doing a really good job as the S4, and they throw me into special services.
Yeah.
And then I get thrown in as a staff sec. And those were oddballs for me, but they also gave me a different perspective because they taught me more about staff functions. So I called my boss and said, what's the deal with this school? They said, well, you're a biology teacher, so we know you understand biology. We think you'd probably be a good mortuary affairs officer. I'm going, really? So, okay. I go to school and I find out they wanted me to go down to New Orleans and talk to the guy that did mortuary affairs work during Desert Storm.
Oh, okay.
John Cassidy he lives in Louisiana, and just missed him. So we communicated email and phones, and when my instructions was I was supposed to write a mortuary affairs appendix for the O plant. And it was real good. And I finally I sent it to John, and John read it, and he called me on the phone, and he goes, "You've never done this stuff before, have you?" I said, "Nope, not a bit. The only thing close to seeing the dead body was when they took us to the Roanoke County, the Richmond County morgue in Virginia, and we got to see four cases that came in.
Wow.
But you've never processed them. I've never processed them, John. I'm a motor transport officer. I'm a logistics officer, not mortuary affairs. He says, man, you really wrote something that's about 95% correct.
Wow.
And that's based on what he did in Iraq, in Desert Storm. So of course, we have to tweak it. And I didn't have a problem with that because that's how I am. And so it was staffed, and a bunch of people kind of looked at it weird and, wanted to know, well, what's the whole reason for this? And so I had to brief the staff and say the reason for this is we're going to have KIAs, military,
right,
Iraqi, and civilians.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I've spent all this time writing this O plan. And of course, they wanted to know, well, how do you know it's going to work? I said, I don't know how it's going to work. But I do know one thing: if we don't have this, it's going to be a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So that whole year I was in Hawaii. I went to Guam. I was part of a consequence management team, and we did a real world threat scenario. And on a side note, I was able to do some scuba diving when I was there.
Yeah, good.
And I got to see some World War II, not ships, but harbor type craft. And I got to see an awful lot of ammunition on the ground, on the seafloor.
No kidding.
It was really, really quite interesting. A lot of fun. Okay. So now my year is coming up to an end, and I'm finding out that I'm going to be put back in the classroom, and I didn't want to go back to the classroom.
Right.
So I contacted a buddy of mine sitting in the G4 chair at First FSSG.
Okay.
We were together as captains. Kevin Hughes, he was a colonel, an 06 colonel. And I told him my dilemma. I said, I want to be on active duty, and I want to be part of First FSSG and all that. So he contacted Colonel Sweeney, and Sweeney contacted the chief of staff at Marfor Pack, big 6'6" lurch guy, and the way Sweeney explained the story to me was he was not happy that we took you, but because you told Kevin that you were already informed you were being released, then we want Poletti. Okay. So I'm now being requested by name. And so what Sweeney told me was this colonel was so upset. He says, well, we can take him back whenever we want. And he said, you can try. So everybody hung up a phone, and I report to First FSSG.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready, and I fly back, and I report to First FSSG. I have to go through the whole process and processing at First FSSG.
Right.
And they asked, I wanted to know what my job was going to be. So, well, your job is to prepare us to go to Iraq. And I asked Sweeney, well, am I going to go? And Sweeney said, well, we're not sure, but I've got 3 jobs that I think I'd like you to do if I just have to find the one that's going to work for you.
Right.
So again, this whole thing about reserve officers kind of came back into into the mix. And
Mm-hmm.
the CO of what's now called 1st Transportation Battalion, they used to be called 7th Motors. He's a full bird colonel, and he didn't want a reservist to be his XO.
Okay.
And Sweeney told me that, and I said, "Really? We're going to do this again, sir?" And he says, "Tony, just sit there." So I go, "Yes, sir." So then he said, "You know what? You'll be our division liaison, the 1st Marine Division." Sir, that's great. I can do that. I know what that job entails, and I'll be able to keep both the division and the FSSG prepared. And he goes, "Okay, I expect that." So I go. I'm now the division L&O. 3 weeks later, I'm told they don't want me. They decided they weren't going to use an L&O, an L&O, and I still don't understand why they didn't. Because the guy that I was working for was a buddy of mine from when we were together at 514.
Okay.
A guy named Horrigan, and he was the S3 when I was the headquarters battery CO.
Okay. Yeah.
And we became good friends because he knew I was a logistics officer. So no, he wasn't the S3, he was the S4. That was the job I wanted.
Oh,
But
I see. Yeah.
they decided. And what was really funny was the reason why they didn't give me the S4 job is because, and this is why I saved it here, because it makes more relevance because of Horrigan. Here and Horrigan come back together again.
Yeah.
Was the I&I, the assistant I&I, he was a classmate of mine at OCS and TBS.
Oh, wow.
His name was Snyder.
Okay.
And he talked to the battalion CO about, I need a battery CO and he can do the job. He's already he was a company commander for transport company. I mean, for a truck company in Horno. He can do the job. Okay, so now let's go back to where we are now. So I called up Horrigan. I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I can't explain it. It's really stupid. I've been told to shut up, and I don't want to. I don't want this to get out." I said, "Okay, man, no problem. Hey, Godspeed. I'll maybe we'll be tonight." Live to be working for Kevin Hughes, my buddy.
Yeah.
And in combat service support, there's what's called 6 functional areas of support: maintenance, sustainment, transportation, medical, dental, chaplain, and the cats and dogs. The finance officer, the LSSS, the legal, LSSS, the post office, the PX, and mortuary affairs.
Okay.
And I was very bitter about that because I always wanted to lead Marines in combat, and it wasn't going to happen. But it's given me an opportunity to be a good steward, a good officer, and do the best I can do and get the job done.
Right.
And that little domain is huge. It really is huge. And the SSS officers, lieutenant colonel, the finance officer is a lieutenant colonel. Postal was a warrant, a 4, CW04.
Wow.
PX was a warrant, CW04. Mortuary affairs was a lieutenant colonel, John Cassidy.
Okay.
A very small, very, very small world. So, and that's really for tourists, because it's amazing how all these people were together to do this particular mission.
Right.
And yeah, I wanted to be the OPSO for the G3. I wanted to be at the center of the action, but it wasn't until I started doing my job just how complicated it was going to be.
Right.
Okay. So, and now the word is, and I told my wife, I said, it's not if I'm going to Iraq, hon, it's when I'm going to Iraq.
Right.
And we thought February, March timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of worked pretty hard, getting everything squared away.
Mm-hmm.
John was in New Orleans because he was handling the mortuary affairs, or used to be called graves registration people. Well, we weren't going to bury anybody. Yeah, we did, but that's coming up. So John and I, I spent a lot of time focusing on this because I met the post officer and the postal officer OIC, and I met the PX OIC, and they were squared
Right.
away. I wasn't going to mess with CW04s anyway. And these guys were active duty. So I knew they would know their job. So all of a sudden they start changing things, and we're told we have to get a lot of stuff. Got to get a will. Got to do this. Got to do this. Right. Oh, by the way, we're going to issue you your camis, and you're going to have to take them someplace, and they're going to be sprayed down with some sort of pesticide that's not dangerous to you. And I'm just going, pesticides are bad for bugs, but they're not bad for bugs. So then I get briefed that I'm going in country. I don't know, January 2nd, January 3rd. I can't remember the date.
Okay.
So couldn't tell my wife that because I found out right before Christmas. This happened right before Christmas.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell her. And so I had to wait till after Christmas.
Yeah.
And see, we did a port and starboard. So I was lucky to be the first to take the Christmas break. And then I had to go back the day after Christmas to work.
Oh, I see.
And then I broke it to her, and she was not happy.
Yeah.
So now I fly by myself. I'm not flying with anybody. And
wow.
So then I find out that, oh, by the way, you're going to be issued a pistol. I said, I'm getting on an airplane, right? I mean, yeah, we've done this before, so don't worry about it. And I go, okay. So they gave me a box. It's a lock box, by the way, but they gave me a box. I had the order on top of it. I had the order stapled to my orders and all this good stuff. And they said, you can't lock the box. I'm sorry. It's a lock box. It can be locked. Why can't I lock the box? Because when you take it to the airport, they're going to X-ray your sea bag, and they're going to see a box in there, and they're going to want to open it. And you're not going to be there. You're going to be getting on an airplane, and they're going to take your bag over, blah, 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 blah. And I go, what happens if they take the gun? Don't worry about if they take the gun. That's their problem. Okay. So now I go, I drop my trash off, and people are treating me really, really nice and all that. And I go through I go to the gate to check in with my tickets, and they're really nice to me and all that. And they said, they saw where I was going, and they said, they said, well, I guess I can't ask you where you're going because it's on your ticket, but I guess you're going someplace. I go, yeah, I am going. So now I go up and I go to the gate.
Yeah.
And the person that's checking in the tickets reads the name on my ticket, and she goes, oh my gosh, Mr. Poletti, I didn't realize you were in the Marines. And normally when a person says that to me, it's because they're the parent of one of the kids that I've taught. And she was the parent of one of the kids that I taught.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was one of those things. And she came out and she hugged me, and then everybody was wanting to know, the employees, well, why'd you give him a big hug? He says, well, he's going overseas. And then they came up and gave me hugs. And
Yeah.
all that. And then next thing I know, she says, we're going to give you a different ticket. I'm on the same plane. Oh yeah, you're the same plane. So I got to go first class
Oh,
to
wow.
Minneapolis. Yeah. I got to go first class to Minneapolis. And she said, I don't know if we can guarantee you a first class ticket to the West Coast. West Coast or East Coast? Wherever. Probably East Coast.
Yeah.
But we want to do this for you. I said, my God, guys, thanks.
Yeah.
So, okay, break. So when I left Hawaii, and then when I went to the school and got back, my principal called me and said, we want you at the football game on such and such on Friday night, such and such day. We want you to bring your family, and we'd like you to be in uniform. Oh, shit. Okay. Will do, boss. So yeah, I was roasted out there. They did a good job making me feel well loved. So okay,
Yeah.
forward. So I fly in to Kuwait, and it's cold. It's dark. I'm tired, although I slept on the plane, and they give me a temporary rack because they said you're not going to stay here. You're going to go out to I'll remember it later. Not Viper. It was whatever it was called. So I saw the G3, and this was the G3 that wasn't a very nice G3, but it was the G3. And he said, what are you doing here? I said, sir, they sent me here. He said, who? The chief of staff, sir. I was told I was to report to you and all this, and went my way. And we'll get you. We're going to send you right back. I said, okay, sir. Well, next thing I know, I'm on a truck going to the camp. God, why can't I remember the name of that camp? So I get there. John Cassidy is there, and reported aboard. Everybody's happy to see me, and and this is January. So between January and March, I was doing what was called AFE's rodeo routes or whatever. And that what they did was they went around and they would sell their merchandise to the different camps.
Okay.
At the different camps. By the time they got to the camp that I was at, it was the end of the line.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much dry. It wasn't a lot in there. So anyway, but everyone was happy. They got something, and all that. Anyway, so we're setting everything up, and now comes, I get my intent from the commanding general. He says, wherever I plant my flag, I want you to plant a post office and a PX. And he asked me about supplies for the PX and for the post office. And I said, we're working on that, sir. We're actually at the end of the pipeline because the ships are leaving out of San Francisco and they're going to Hawaii, to Guam, to Okinawa, Philippines, Korea, Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go to the canal, and so we get our resupply. Well, they started flying supplies. They realized they needed to shorten the pipeline.
Right.
So anyway, that's what the generals wanted me to do, and I said, "Yes, sir, I'll be able to do that." So now it's, I think, March 21st, and we fly across. They crossed the berm on the 21st. I think we flew the 22nd or the 23rd,
Mm-hmm.
and we landed at a place called Jalibah.
Mm-hmm.
It was an Iraqi airfield in the middle of nowhere, and it was a big facility. So one side, the southern side, was where the airfield was, and the northern side was where we had FSS MLG. Oh, they did a name
Right.
change, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
right. Yeah.
they called themselves First MLG. So I get there. Cassidy stays in oh my gosh, what's that camp called? And he stays there, and so now I'm up front, and the war, we're like a week into the war,
Right.
and so I had to find a place I could hook up my computer. Space was a premium, and getting
Yeah.
a cable, an R8, R4, whatever it's called, cable to get internet for the SIPRNet was even more difficult. But
Oh yeah.
I found out I had one dedicated to me, and the person that had it was not happy when I wanted my cable.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting communications, doing all this, and then General shows up, and now PXP thing. The really interesting story was when I knew I had to go to Charlie Surgical. That was the main surgical unit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you can equate it to a MASH unit or not. Probably it was. So I went over and I said hello, and I went to talk to the head nurse. And I wanted to know if I could get you anything for a PX. What would you like?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me a list of stuff. She wanted some hygiene stuff for the nurses and for the corpsmen.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't ask for very much, but she just wanted some soap. But they really had a lot of that stuff, so it wasn't so
Yeah.
much of a deal. But I go, well, how about cookies? And she goes, oh, we have lots of cookies. And I go, where'd you get the cookies from? And she goes, well, the let's see, MLG, CLB, yeah.
Yeah. CLB.
Um,
Yeah.
so the logistic hub for us, they have them inside their stores, and they don't. I asked them where they came from, and they wouldn't tell her.
Yeah.
They didn't. I mean, they said that it was we just discovered it. It was in a Connex, so they had
Yeah.
Big Newtons
Nice.
and Chips Ahoy. I go,
Both
wow, that's
both
pretty
great.
cool.
Great things to have, especially
Yeah,
deployed.
yeah. So I go, okay, and I go, okay, let me go and get back, and she goes, well, what about the boys? I go, what do you mean, what about the boys? She says, well, we have KIA that's in a reefer outside. I go, what are they doing here? And she said, well, we kind of asked them the same question because we had this document, and it said that they were supposed to be picked up at the BSA, not the BSA, the BAS,
Yeah.
and And then they were supposed to follow this plan. And I'm going, well, somebody read my plan. And obviously some other people did not read my plan.
Yeah.
So, and that was a funny story when I told John about that, because he said, yeah, we're hearing about it. So she got a chief to take me out there, and I looked in the reefer, and sure enough, they were just like sides of beef inside, and there were Iraqis on one side, and there were Marines on the other side. I'm going, how long have they been here? He said, well, it's a few days. Has anybody made contact with the rear? And no. So I said, okay, I got to go and get on the computer, and then I'm going to be right back. When I come back, I need a few things. And she said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I need a corpsman who can write legibly and can help me with those remains. Okay, what else do you need? I said, I need a gurney stand and a gurney, because I got to be able to flip them, roll them over, and I need a garbage bag so I can put their personal effects in it and all that stuff. And she goes, okay, anything else? I said, yeah, I need to talk to a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever you guys have, because I need to have somebody talk me down after I finish what I'm going to do.
Right.
She says, have you done that before? I said, no, I've worked on dead cats, dead dogs. I've worked on a lot of dead things because I'm a biology teacher. And she goes, oh, you can handle it. You're a big Marine. I go, right. Thank you.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So I go back and I sent an email to John. I told John what I got. And he says, oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So it took about a week and a half, but I'll get to that in a second. So I go back the next morning, and I'm just didn't sleep well. And I got there, saw the nurse, and she said, I got everybody standing by, and they'll meet you in the back, and you'll be ready to go. So I go, okay, thanks. So I saw the kid. He had a clipboard. He said, I told him what he was supposed to do. I had the forms, and he said, okay, I can do that. No problem. And I saw, I believe his name was Christian. I go, well, you don't have to be here, but I just need to talk to somebody afterwards, because I have a feeling this is going to be a long day for me. So yeah, sure enough, he stays. Every now and then I see him. He's there and all that, and the kid, and I'm just doing it, going through the process, collecting stuff, identifying it, writing. He's writing it on the forms, and then after a while, I noticed somebody else was there, and the other kid left because he was going off shift or whatever, and I didn't want to keep him from doing that. And then Christensen was still there, and which is fine, and all this. And I started probably, I guess, around 8, and I must have gone into about 6, 7 at night that night.
Oh wow, long time.
It was because I had to get everybody done. I wanted everybody to be done, and including I also had some Iraqi guys, and that was a harder one. But I did the bags for them, and I just identified them based on their numbers that they had on their dog tags, and that was fine. So next day, more remains came in, not as many, and I processed them and all that. So what was funny was I went to go see. I looked up, and I was done, and he wasn't there anymore. He left, and he shows up, and I go, "Where'd you go a second ago?" I said, "I couldn't handle this anymore." I said, "You're a doctor. You went to medical school." I said, "Nah, this is different." So I razzed him a little bit, and we went to their quarters, and he had cookies of all things, and and we talked, and he just wanted to know, you're not planning to do anything stupid. I said, no, not really. But you left me during my hour of need. I can't imagine why you would leave me. And then I rubbed it in a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah.
And he finally realized that I was pulling his leg. But I said, you promised you were going to be there. And
Yeah.
so anyway, next day, more remains. Next day, more remains.
Mm-hmm.
Then one day I got a kid, little infant, and both legs were blown off. And, you know, and I just put the little kid with the Iraqi soldiers. And meanwhile, I emailed John. I said, we got to have there needs to be a plan. I don't remember writing it in the book, but he goes, yeah, you did. You wrote something about burying Iraqis, but we didn't identify where they would be buried. We just ran through the motion. We covered it. I go, well, I'm glad I did that, but I don't know what we're going to do. He said, well, we're talking to the Farsi guys, the language guys that contracted with us. And they said they've developed a plan and we're just going to incorporate it into the appendix. We'll go with that. I said, great. Just tell me where and when. That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
So finally a 53 flies in and they take all the remains, the American remains, and everything's good to go. So, and I'm still mad because my guys are not here. They're where they're supposed to be, but no one's following the plan, and they should be here doing what I'm doing.
Right.
So, sure enough, they finally showed up, and it was like, well, where's all the remains? I said, well, you guys are late. So, and they trickled in at a time. So break. A little bit before that, a UH-1 augured in the deck at Joliba. And what happened was it was a really bad storm. And it's interesting about a helicopter pilot, the amount of torque they put on the collective so that they're able to get the bird up, and then they're holding the cyclic. But they have a lot of tension when they raise the collective with their left. I think that's how it goes. And so anyway, what happened was he got up, he began to transition, but he went down for whatever reason, and he flipped over. His co-pilot, the XO, bailed out. And the only reason he was able to bail out without being chopped is because all he did was fall out, drop down, and the helicopter went.
Oh my gosh!
And so he survived. Well, what makes this interesting is, and I processed both the staff sergeant and the captain, and what kind of got me with the staff sergeant is his wallet fell out, and it opened up to his family.
Oh,
that kind of took a lot out of me at that point.
Yeah.
And then I got hold of a sat phone and I called home. I want to talk to my wife, and I asked her what was going on and all that. And she said, do you know that there was a captain that died in Iraq? And I go, well, and there's a lot of captains that are probably dying in Iraq. Well, this was a pilot. And I go, he's a pilot? Yeah, he flew like that Huey thing that you talked about, and I put it together, and I told her, I said, I think I worked on him. He was in really bad shape. Remember the movie Batman, and what's his name, Joker? Half of his face was all gnarled, and the other half was okay. That's kind of what happened to the captain. He got burned on one side of his body, and his other side was okay. But it was really interesting that she didn't put it together, but I did. That he lived in Temecula, and they put it on the air that he had died in a crash. So it was really, really one of those weird stories, and I don't need to talk anymore about this, but I I was very proud of what I did because I was trained well, but I was very annoyed with other senior officers who felt like they were the kings of their dynasties and they get to keep their people's men and Marines. And no, they were supposed to be well, but they were where they were supposed to be. The problem was the BASs were not following the plan. So there was an interesting case, and it was a kid that he was in an LAV, and his gloves weren't perfectly sealed, and he went to move there was a wire across the road. He decided to reach up and move it. Well, that wasn't the right thing to do at the time because he got fried. And so his platoon brought him to the hospital. And he was the he had just expired. He just died. And what irritated me was, and I brought it up to the senior doctor and that nurse,
right?
That they left all the stuff on this kid, the IVs, the trach, when they intubated him, all that, they left it all in, and so they took everything out for me, and I processed this kid. But it turned out he was a kid from a wrong side of town that decided to be a Marine, and he turned his life around, and he was a corporal. And here's this fluke impulsive thing that took place, and he gets killed. Kind of sad.
Wow.
But his fellow Marines were really proud of him, and they wanted him to be taken care of. And I told him, I said, he'll be taken care of. Don't worry about it. But it was just one of those weird things that takes place.
Yeah.
So that's number 5, and I don't need to talk about number 5 anymore, but I'll talk about postal and PX, because this is where it's really fun, and the fun part of my job. And once my MA teams were in place, it was clockwork. It was exactly the way the plan was written, and that made me feel good. So the general so we were the first unit to have a post office in PX. We beat the Army. The Army is AFIS, but we beat the Army because we had this plan laid out. So I went around walking because, forbid me to have a vehicle. So I'm in my gear walking around. So I go to the CLB, and I need to talk to them about setting up a PX and a post office. Well, the 3 didn't want anything to do with me. She just thought she was the best thing since Nutella, butter, cinnamon on toast. And and I don't know what the deal was with her, but she was a major, and I just didn't understand why she had to be that way. And she knew her job. Don't get me wrong. She knew her job. She was a good officer, but it was just, I don't know if it was the stress of what was going on or not, but I said, okay, I'm gonna go talk to your XO. And she goes, well, I don't think you should disturb the XO. Well, I'll talk to the CO. Can't talk to the CO either. I said, yeah, I can. I can talk to your CO. Don't give me that. He's a lieutenant colonel just like me. So I talked to the boss, and he goes, oh my God, really? You're going to do that for us? I said, yeah, I just need space. Can you give us a GP tent so we can do this? That's all we need is that capability. And he said, yeah, we'll give you a GP tent. And he yells out for the sergeant major, and the sergeant major comes walking in. He finds out what my job is. He says, sir, I'll do whatever you want if you give us a PX. I said, be careful what you wish for. So we got it. We got it all set up. So I'm walking around. Okay, I'm walking around, and kid comes driving up. He's looking at this Marine walking in the sand, struggling, and he stops, and I open up the door, and he says, "You need a ride, Marine?" I said, "Yeah, I sure could. I'd appreciate a ride if you don't mind." You know, and he goes, "Sir, I'll take you wherever you need to go. No, I mean, no problem. I mean, you don't, I don't want anybody walking in this area if they don't have to." So I'm in the vehicle, and he kind of wants to know, who you with? I said, "Well, I'm with the FSS, the MLG up near the airfield." And he goes, "Oh, you must be a senior staff NCO." I go, "Well, yeah, I'm a senior, but I'm not a staff NCO." And he goes, "Well, what are you?" And I go, "I'm a lieutenant colonel." And the kid almost crapped. He was like, "Oh my God." And so that was like one kid. And then a couple of times it also happened, but the PX and the post office were set up.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people were connecting this one old man walking around.
Uh-huh.
Old. I was 49, I think. Um, and they were looking for me. They wanted to make sure that that this guy took care of them, and
Yeah.
they did. So in the interim, I got an email that said something about we needed to find a thing called health and comfort packs.
Okay.
And it's in a big box. There's 12 in a box. And a box takes care of 12 Marines.
Okay.
Basically 3 to a squad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a platoon, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're designed to last for about, I think 30 or 40 days, something like that.
Okay.
The WMs, oh my God, I used WM, sorry. The WMs have their health and comfort case as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they rate 2. So they rate the other one, but they also rate theirs because it's specifically designed for women.
Right.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, word came down from MEF that we needed to find those health and comfort kits.
Right.
And of course, my question was, doesn't somebody have a manifest on where it came in? Well, when we actually arrived break. So when we arrived at the camp,
Mm-hmm.
before crossing the berm,
Right.
I saw the Iron Mountain of Conex containers.
Yeah.
Oh, and on a side story, there was a mountain of water bottles on pallets.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and that's a story that will probably close. But anyway, so I went around to all the places I could go to. I would hitch a ride, and couldn't find, nobody knew where they were. And then so I wanted to end with my CLB in my area,
Mm-hmm.
which was stupid because I should have started with them and I wouldn't have gone to all these other camps. So I went, my favorite S3 officer she said,
Yeah.
"We don't have those things. I don't know why you're wasting our time." Okay. So I went to talk to the CO. I told him about it. He says, "Well, you probably should go down to see Captain So-and-so down in the class lot." So
Yeah.
I go, "Okay." So I'm walking down there again, and there's a kid at the gate. It's really funny. just, you look around and it's just 3 strands of barbed wire around this case. And then here, there's a kid with a weapon checking for IDs.
Right. Yeah.
So I pull my ID out and he wants to know the challenge and all that stuff. And I give it to him and he says, what, state your business. I'm going, are you just from boot camp? I said, don't answer. It's not important, but you're doing a good job, Corporal. So he called, told the desk that, hey, I got somebody, I got a lieutenant colonel here. He's looking for some stuff.
Yeah.
So they sent a gunny. They sent a gunny to me, and he took me to the captain. He didn't volunteer any information. I told him what I was looking for, but he didn't volunteer anything.
Yeah.
And the captain didn't know anything about it. The master sergeant didn't know anything about it. And so the gunny, I linked up with the gunny again, and he was walking me out, and he stopped me, and he goes, sir, what are you looking for again? I said, well, there's health and comfort packs. They're about this big, this big, this big. There's about 12 in a box, and meth is in an uproar because nobody knows where it's at. And he had a little bit of a perceptible pause. And I go, okay, Gunny, what's going on? He goes, sir, I think we got those health and comfort packs. You think? Or do you really know? He says, well, I'm afraid to answer that because I might get in trouble. I said, well, my God, what have you been doing? Passing them out? He says, yes, sir. How many? Oh, about 100 cases? No, boxes. Who are you giving them to? The units up front? Oh, okay, that's good. That'll work for me, Gunny.
Yeah.
You're not mad? No. I'm happy that you have them and you know where they are, but don't pass any of them out anymore because I got to give them a number. So I need you to give me a number minus 100 so that you can have 100 to pass out, or 144, 12 cases.
Yeah.
Goes, okay, so thank you. I really appreciate that.
You there?
Do you got oh, yeah, sir. We have those two. They're specially marked. I go, my billet, and it was really good. The mortuary affairs was working correctly. We got a PX here, and then I found out that the general's going to move again, so we got to get another PX post office. I'm not going to repeat that, but that's what we had to do.
Right.
So anyway, we're doing our stuff, and now we're at a place called Diwaniwa.
Mm-hmm.
It was a veterinary medical school, and it was sad. The Republican Guard let out the prisoners out of the jails, and they just torched the school. They stole things, they destroyed things. It was really, really sad. And they had this really beautiful library, and I did take pictures of the library.
Yeah.
And so I saw the building, and I went and talked to the G3, and the G3 said, yeah, that would be a good place for a consolidated PX and post office. So sure enough, we started. The funny thing was we were not supposed to pass out mail. Meth didn't want us to pass out mail because they didn't want it. They didn't want somebody to get mail and other people not get mail.
Oh,
it would affect their morale. And
right.
And my counter argument was, sir, if we give out mail, then the others are going to know that they may be getting a letter any day because we're delivering mail. So my guys, I actually told my guys, and they were upset because It's not postal procedures. I'd have to send a postal person. No, just have the driver sign for the bag. And then they'll bring it to us, and then we'll distribute it. But you got to start sending up mail. And they did.
That's good.
So I had a lot more free time, and I decided that I was going to go to the library after I do all my emails in the morning. I was going to go to the library and work, help sort the bags. The bags were coming in.
Right.
The bags were coming in, and mail was going out, and mail was going back to the rear at the same time. I mean, we were really doing a great job. So the units found out about it, and they would send a vehicle every day. Almost each battalion would send a runner in a vehicle to pick up mail.
Right.
So if you can imagine lanes, and these lanes are filled with these big mail bags. And so they did a great job setting up a system where they were able to process bags fairly quickly.
Right.
So I usually show up and I help a little bit, but I take off my gear. I'm working in a t-shirt because now it's like March, April. It's getting warm.
Yeah.
No, we're already in March. It's more like May, June.
Okay.
So I'm working, and I need to go back and check in, do some more work, and do other things. So there was a staff sergeant, and gotta love staff sergeants. But he saw me putting my gear back on, and he wanted to know where I was going. I said, well, Staff Sergeant, I've got to get back, and I've got work to do. And I only come here for about 3 or 4 hours because I still have to do my job. He said, no, you're not leaving until I tell you can go. And I'm going, yes, Staff Sergeant, not a problem. So I'm helping load his bags on his vehicle with his working party.
Yeah.
And one of my guys, and I don't know who suggested the Lance Corporal to do it, but it was a really funny story. The Lance Corporal goes up and he told the Staff Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, do you know who that person is that's lifting those bags for you? And I said, yeah, he's a Marine. He goes, well, he's a little bit more than a Marine. He's a Lieutenant Colonel. And he has a job to do, and he needs to go do this job because you don't realize what he does to make your life better. So the Staff Sergeant just shit a brick.
Yeah.
I guess I shouldn't have said that, but I don't care.
No, you're
and
fine.
He was very apologetic, and he was like, and he was almost at a point where I was very upset because I started thinking about the way he was doing this, and I go, Staff Sergeant, I'm a little concerned with you because you treated me like dirt because you knew I wasn't anybody important, and now that you know I'm important, you're really like apologetic and all that. So I'm wondering, is that how you treat your Marines? And I go, I tell you what. I know your unit. I know your battalion commander, and I'll just maybe have to send him an email and report your behavior to him because I think that's not the thing to do. I'm not going to say disciplinary things, but I don't think it was very. I'm just concerned how you treat your Marines, and he was like, oh man, 3 shades of white and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that got taken care of, So now it's Easter, and we spent Easter Sunday sunrise service, and that was one of these surreal things that was just made it really right. And somebody made a cross and put barbed wire on it and put it in this water fountain, and the service was really really good. So anyway, we get the word that we're going to be heading back.
Right.
Okay, we're now at a phase where we can go back to the rear. So we get back to that camp that I just can't remember. Really mad. So it's a nice feeling. I'm back in Kuwait. I'm not on edge as I was before. I was never really in danger per se, but still. So I'm in my hooch, and Colonel Hughes is there too.
Yeah.
And we had the USO come to our camp.
Mm.
And R.E. Ernie was there.
Okay.
The actress that was in the movie Vinny, the lawyer who had that really nice.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Her
about.
name is Melissa Milano or something like that.
Yeah,
She was
Alyssa
there.
Milano. Yeah.
Gary Sinise was there. Had a lot of people there. You know, so Kevin somehow got shanghaied, or he probably volunteered to be the escort, and all that stuff, and help nod and all that. I hooch, and some corporal comes up and says, "Sir, the chief of staff wants to see you now." I go, "What's the problem?" He says, "Well, it's the chief of staff meeting, and you're supposed to be in there." And I go, "No, Colonel Hughes is supposed to be in the chief of staff meeting, not me." He says, "Well, Colonel Hughes isn't here." And I'm going, great. So I go in there, and right when I walk in his traditional prior Oklahoma accent that he has, and he saw me, and he goes, "Antony, you're now the G3 Alpha." And I go, "Roger that, sir." And I saw Cassidy, and Cassidy's laughing his head off. And I go, "What's going on?" And Colonel soon to be General Moore, Daryl Moore, he's a lawyer in prior Oklahoma. "You're now the G3." And it's like, this is the job I've always wanted, and we're leaving soon. So we did that. We did the job. So
yeah,
I know there's a lot more things I could talk about, because really I haven't been promoted to colonel, but that comes up, but the colonel was not a big deal, because the best thing about when I made colonel was I got to go to the Army War College.
Oh, very nice.
6 times I applied for that school. 6 times.
Wow.
And I never got in. And now that I'm a lieutenant, and now that I became a colonel, I'm thinking, why should I go? I'm a colonel. I don't need this school. And I thought about it, and I said, because somebody thought that I should go, because I've been applying. But anyway, so when I was the G3 Alpha, the OPSO, remember I talked about the Iron Mountain of all the Conex containers and all the pallets of water?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And the bottles of water were dwindling down.
Yeah.
And I would drive around the camp and check into with the battalions and all that, and talk to them, and check in my main PX and my main post office. Everything's running smoothly now. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And something was bugging me about this. I couldn't figure out what it really was until I got back to the COC, and somebody made a point about saying, "Hey, can somebody go get some water? We don't have any water in here." And that's what clicked. I noticed that the pallets were low, were down.
Yeah.
So I call a meeting with the staff, the G3 staff, and I asked them. I said, "Listen, guys, you need to find some answers for me. I need to know how much bottled water we're consuming a day. How many cases are we consuming a day? And
Yeah.
I need you to tell me how many bottles we got, how many cases, how many pallets of bottles water we got, and tell me the delta as to when we're going to run out of water, because I think it's going to be in about 4 or 5 days."
Holy cow.
And we did have ROPUs. The ROPUs were forward, reverse osmosis, water purification. Okay. They were forward, and we didn't have them. So there was a lieutenant named Bogle, went to the Naval Academy. I didn't recruit her, but she went to the Naval Academy. Oh, I do have one more story. So anyway, she's the one that took it upon herself to contact the finance officer, to let the financial officer know we're going to be ordering a ton of water, a buttload of water. And we need to get the paperwork started. We need to know that who's gonna, all that stuff. And she's a second lieutenant, and she did all this up and got it taken care of.
Very nice.
And it was really one of these great things. Okay. So I had a kid, and he's in the academy. He's going to graduate in 24. And I mean, 20. This is 20. Yeah. He's going to graduate in 24. And I somehow or another we contacted each other, and he told me that he's thinking about dropping out of the academy. And I went, wait a minute, why are you going to drop out of the academy? That's one of the dumbest things I could think that you would do. And he said that he was having trouble because he wasn't making all A's. And I go, well, I didn't go to the academy. I can't even spell the academy. But it's you're one of the smartest students I've ever had, and all this. So I had two people that went to the academy on my team. Bogle was one, and then I had a captain who was the other. And they said, "Sir, let us talk to him. We will get him straight." I said, "No, I don't want you to rip him apart, but I'll let you talk to him, but I don't want you to do that. He's got to make that decision." And finally he realized that was a stupid mistake that he was going to do. And he changed his mind. I don't know if Bogle did it or if the captain did it. I think it was Captain Davis. I don't know. But he decided to do it, and he followed through. He became a line officer on the mine ship, mine layer,
minesweeper ship. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
And then I found out a couple of years later he got out medically because he had a disease, a condition that was pretty bad, and he had to get out.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those weird things. So then, I wind up making colonel. I get to go to the Army War College, and it was like this. It just nothing. It's like I hit that level, and now I'm going down, and it's not fun. And it's like we were forgetting what was going on, but yet we went another 18 years in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So, and then of course I get out in 2007 and finish my teaching career and move back home to Texas, and I joined the League.
Very nice.
And now I'm heavily engaged in the League. I'm the Department of Texas Commandant. I'm I'm the department chair for the national convention that we're going to have in Dallas in August.
Okay. Yeah.
Excuse me. And I got Southern Division in front of me to go to. So I'm looking at that as a possibility. It just depends what the big guy upstairs thinks about me.
Yeah.
So would I thought about the question the other day, and I thought, what would have happened if I would have enlisted first?
Yeah.
Because I could have, theoretically, I could have been sent to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have enlisted the September of 74, I theoretically could have gone, but probably wouldn't, because it ended in 75.
True.
But then I would have been in there for 4 years, 5 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go to college. So now all the dots are changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And would I have become an officer? I think I would have. I probably would have been smart enough to read the Almars and see what's this NAP thing all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably find a naval academy graduate officer, and all that. So it's amazing how you I guess it's in the movie Stand and Deliver when James Olmos tells the kid driving the sitting in the passenger seat of this Camaro that this kid is making, because he wants to be a mechanic. He says, which way? And the kid goes, what? Which way? Which fork? Go to your left. And it tees into a dead end. And he goes, you see the fork in the road, you don't see what's at the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got to kind of think about that. And then of course the last is Yogi Berra. When he was going to be interviewed by a newscaster, and the newscaster says, "Where's your house?" He goes, "Well, go down this road, and when you come to the fork in the road, take it, and it will take you to my house." And the guy didn't understand what he meant by that, and so he called him back, and so I need to know why. Which fork in the road do I take? So the moral of that story was, when you went to Yogi Berra's house, there was a tree, and the road split.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've always tried to teach my students and kids that go to the academy, my junior officers, my staff NCOs, my NCOs. You don't know which fork to take because you don't know where you're going to go.
Very true. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am today. And if I had went to the Houston Fire Department like my buddy wanted me to after my first semester of a disastrous year in college with a 0.9 GPA.
Yeah.
Would I have been a Marine?
Yeah.
No, because I wouldn't have graduated from college, because I had to graduate from college to be a Marine officer. So I graduated from college. I became a Marine officer because my dad served in the Pacific. My brother-in-law served in Vietnam in the Air Force. My son served, and he was in Iraq, not the same time I was. So a side anecdotal story for him is he was having a hard. He was telling me, Dad, you don't understand. It was hard being over there. And I go, wait a minute, son. You were in the wing. You had a roof over your head. You had a warm rack with 3 hots every day, and you were taking showers every day. Your old man was carrying 60 pounds on his back because he didn't get a vehicle to drive in.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you had a bad day? I don't think so. So, but
Yeah.
we talked quite a bit. I don't know how to end it unless you got some
Well,
questions, but
I always end it with the series of rapid fire questions.
oh my gosh.
So if you're ready for that, we can do that.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh, it'll be great. It'll be great. All right. What is your proudest military moment?
When my son made sergeant,
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
because I would have wanted to be a sergeant. I
Hmm.
thought the two greatest enlisted ranks was the gunny and the sergeant major.
Yeah.
And my joke is I'm 2 grades higher than my terminal rank. I never thought I'd make it more than major, and I did.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
that's
awesome.
that one.
Okay. What is your most embarrassing military moment?
Oh, I was a second lieutenant, and I didn't quite understand the rules because in Okinawa you work 6 days a week,
Hmm.
and there was a meeting that was called, and we were supposed to go to the meeting, and I showed up in my running suit,
Oh no.
and I'm the only one in this running suit. Everyone else is in camis, and the XO said he wanted to see me later.
Yeah.
He was a great guy, Colonel Moffett. He made full bird colonel, and he was a great guy. He really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and he chewed me out in a nice way, but he said, "Man, you were funny looking." I said, "Sir, nowhere did I read I'm supposed to be in uniform on Saturday. I didn't realize we worked 6 days a week." He goes,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's just one of those things that you just don't know about, but don't do it
Well,
again."
I
So,
guess
well,
you learned it though. So
at least I was in an authorized running uniform, but I wasn't
true.
in
Yeah.
the authorized.
That's pretty good. Oh, sorry. Here we go. If you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
Wow. Um,
Stumped you.
no, there's just so many that I can think of that I've read that
Yeah.
I just, I just kind of. Um, oh man. I don't know. I don't want to say I don't want to not include a Marine, but Halsey was uh,
Okay.
one of my studies. I specialize in the Pacific. I'm not a European
Hmm.
theater guy for World War
Hmm.
II. I was a Pacific guy, and
Yeah.
and I would say Halsey, or I'd even say Vandegrift,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
because I've read him quite a bit. You know,
Yeah.
things that he had to do on that island, and there's some outstanding junior officers too. So
Hmm.
you know,
Very true.
so hold on for a second. So you can't see it, but I have a plaque. I have a frame over there, and it's my Bronze Star. And the funny
Uh,
thing about that is, yeah, I earned it. I did. But the funny thing about it is, my friend John Cassidy, he's the G3, so he chairs the awards committee,
hmm.
uh, and he showed me a write up. He says, "Tony, read this write up and tell me what this kid should get." It was a first lieutenant.
Hmm.
Now you got to understand. Okay, I'm an officer, so I'm over in TBS, and all I see are these bronze stars for captains and first lieutenants and
Yeah.
second lieutenants. So I read this, and I'm just going, Well, probably not Medal of Honor. Probably not Silver Star. I say bronze. He should get a bronze star. He says, nope. He's getting a Navy Commendation V. I go, you're
No kidding.
A Navy Commendation V? And what the kid basically did was there was a convoy and truck stop, and you never stop. You just floor that thing.
Yeah.
Through the kill zone.
That's right.
He drives his vehicle, and his gunner on top is firing his weapon, and he's telling everybody to get out of the kill zone. And he goes back to get the rest of the convoy because he told them to stop, and he wanted everybody to be shooting when they go through the kill zone. And so he did that twice. He drove up and then drove out and took everybody. He gets a Navy Com V and not a bronze. I'd give my bronze to that kid.
Wow.
It would hurt me to do that, but I would give that kid my bronze.
Yeah.
But that's what we have at the basic school. We have all these kids, these second lieutenants, first lieutenants, captains that did amazing things.
Yeah.
During some trying times.
Wow.
So Vandergrift, Nimitz, Halsey.
Yeah. Any of those are great.
There's a lot of them that were really great officers. It's just the flavor of the day, flavor of the month.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Depends on who I'm reading at the same time.
True.
So
yeah.
Anyway, okay.
All right. If you could change one rule in the military, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that one is one rule.
Just one.
Well, actually, I think it's already changed. I don't know if the Marines are allowed to do it, but if you leave the base, why can't you be in your camis and go home? And if you got to stop to get gas, why can't you stop to get gas? Type of thing.
Yeah.
I know the Army does it and the Air Force does it.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the Marines are allowed to wear camis out in the but to me that would be the one that I would that I could not go through one of the main gates wearing my camis, and it got so bad that I would put on a different top just and not change, just go straight home because I didn't want to change. I just wanted to leave the base. And that's what I would do. I would take the blouse off and I'd put a sweatshirt on or something and do that. Yeah, I would say that's still in effect.
Yeah, that's a good one to change. I agree with that. What is one lesson or skill that you learned that you still use today?
Read.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm in a process of writing an email, and it's evident that the individual is not reading, and so I'm in a teacher mode, and I'm writing this, but I'm trying to keep as much out of it as I can, but still put enough in it to allow that person to go and do some research and read.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of one of the biggest issues is, it'd be great to say, oh, let's be proficient with our weapons, or let's do this, let's do that. Well, let's take it a little bit more granularity and let's just say read, because that's the foundation of everything as far as I'm concerned. I was never a prolific reader. I was barely a reader. Now, the last book that I read, and there's a reason, is this one.
Oh, that's a good book. Yeah.
And the reason why I read it by coincidence, I had it. It's one of the books I wanted to read. By coincidence, because I'm the chair for the convention, I wound up sending her an email that she's coming to the convention.
Oh, very cool.
So she's going to speak in front of the membership for about 20 minutes, answer questions, and then the next day she's going to. Well, she can't sell her books, but my little grin on my face, I have a plan. and we are going to be able to sell her books.
I like it.
And because I want those individuals who buy the book to go talk to Robin, and Robin will sign the book.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's kind of why I wanted her, because one of the our convention is the theme of the convention, although you can't say it per se, is we're recognizing the 250th anniversary of the Corps. So what we want to do on our committee is take history and do the talk about 250 years of the Corps. So we have somebody who is a descendant of the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
His family came over on the big ship across the big pond. And the reason why reading is important.
I can barely read out what it says. Can you read it to me? Sorry.
Customs, courtesies, traditions.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
1978. I still have it.
Wow.
And I have these Gazette articles. So anyway, so the point is, that's why reading is important, but it's just, anyway.
No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. In the zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice and what anthem would be playing?
Oh my God. You're killing me. Oh man. I don't know. What weapon would it be? Jeez. Why not? I'll just say 50 cal, and then I would like to do the song that was played when what's his name was flying in the Huey, and they had the song going on being played, and Robert Duvall in Barstow. Marlon Brando was the weird colonel, army colonel, and Martin Sheen was.
Yeah. Is it Platoon?
No, that's not Platoon. No.
I'm not sure.
No, it's. I don't remember what the movie is, but they played this song as they're flying in. Every time they go in and destroy a village, they play this song.
Okay.
Dun, dun,
Huh.
dun, 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 dun,
Flight of the Valkyries. I think that's what it's called. Flight of the Valkyrie or something like that. Yeah. That's a good song. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
Well, kind of answered that. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing that's kids today think that they can do a do-over, and they really can't, because it goes back to my analogy of the fork in the road.
Very true.
it's not necessarily smarter, but it's the level of confidence to make the choice, because you can only see the fork. You can't see too far from the fork.
That's right.
And every day is a fork in the road, because you don't know where you're going to go. And,
that's right.
As commandant of the department, I'm constantly so do I write an email and send it to this person because they're making a mistake? Well, the job that person has, it's pretty important, and they're not reading. So that's kind of how I would look at that. But yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't imagine not, because I did have, as that colloquial phrase, hearing the trumpets. Yeah, I heard the trumpets. Yeah. I watched. So on Fox Business, they had a show with Jones, Jeffrey Jones, and he interviewed Sledgehammer's grandson. No.
Great. With the old breed, yeah.
Okay, Sledge. Well, his son has written a sequel to that book.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, and they were talking about that, and Sledge, when he wrote, you would think that he wouldn't want to do it again. Well, he probably wouldn't want to do it again if it may not have even presented itself had Pearl Harbor not taken place. He joined because of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
I think my son wanted to be a Marine partly because of me, but I think because 9/11, because he got to go to Hawaii with me, and he stayed with me for about 6 months. That was hard. That really was hard. Single dad. Let me rephrase. Geographically separated dad. Husband.
Yeah.
And my wife said, "You got to take him for 6 months. We need a break from him."
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll do it. And it luckily it worked out.
Yeah.
Is there another one? Oh darn.
No, that's all the questions. But thanks for coming on, Tony. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. It's been good. I'm sorry about the connection. It hasn't been perfect, but we got it done. That's the good part.
Wow. We spoke for a long time, 3 hours.
Yeah. And it's been good. I've enjoyed every second of it. But
I'm that's what I did as a school teacher. I told stories when I taught, and it helped them learn. So that's just how I am.
Well, worked out
really
good for me.
I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm really, okay.
Absolutely. Well, every show I end and I talk about veteran suicide and ways that they can reach out for help. But to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Tony cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies you serve with, ask them how they're doing it. If they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right, Tony, one last time, thank you very much. Much appreciated. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.